Today we're going to be breaking down one of the samples off of my Grimm Volume 1 sample pack I just released on Patreon. All the links will be in the description. The sample pack contains 10 gritty, dark, grimy hip-hop samples. For this sample in particular, I want to break down my process for how I made the B section. I think the B section is very important for this sample in terms of creating variation within the sample as a whole. So let's get into it. So with this sample, the first thing I started off with was the electric piano. I'm going from D minor 9 to G minor 9. And the interesting thing about this G minor 9 is the voicing I'm playing here. Instead of playing it in its root position, I'm putting G, the root note, on the top and the fifth on the bottom, leaving the ninth and the flat third in the center just to build that tension. Another thing I want to know is I'm also just walking down here. The piano sound that I'm using is the Labs electric piano with the chorus built in. I just thought this sound fit well and it was a good starting point for me to build the sample. The next thing I added was the bass. For the bass, I kept it pretty simple. I'm just playing the root notes of each chord, walking up to transition, and I'm using this eighth note pulse just to kind of drive the rhythm forward. As far as processing, I'm using Cram It. This is the Make Space preset, and then I'm using speakers and I'm running it through this twin amp just to distort the bass, give it that grit. And for the bass sound, I'm using Moto Bass 2, the 60s P bass. For the play style, I got it on 100% muting and I took the detached noise down. I also just boosted a little bit more of the low frequencies here in this studio setting, just to make the bass sound a little bit more heavy. Now the next thing I added were drums. I'm just using these drums to make the sample feel a bit more full. These are Addictive Drums 2. This is one of my Addictive Drums 2 presets called 7 off of my Grooves Volume 1 pack. Also on Patreon if you want to get that. There is a demo version of the Addictive Drums presets I made, so you can download those for free, try them out. And if you like them, you can support me on Patreon and download the Grooves Volume 1 Addictive Drums preset pack, as well as everything else I've ever released on Patreon. Now, I'm not going to walk through the processing I did in Addictive Drums 2, but I will walk through just some of the processing I'm doing outside of Addictive Drums. I just have drum bus here. I have the drive on 11%. I'm dampening it, cutting down the transients a little bit. Next, I'm using the Wolf compressor. This is the Punch and Crunch parallel preset. I've altered these settings slightly. And then the last thing I'm doing is just using a saturator with soft clipping on. Now after the drums, I added this organ. I'm just using this organ to fill up the space in between the initial chords I'm playing at the start of each measure. I'm just playing just the simple minor triad. The organ sound I'm using is coming from Arturia's Farfisa 5, the 4 organs preset. After the organ, I added these vocals. I wanted to add a melody over top the sample, and I thought singing it would be a good idea, as it's somewhat soulful and it kind of goes well with the sample. I'm singing just 1 octave low and then an octave high. As far as processing, I'm using my vocal chain that is free on my Patreon. If you don't have Pro Q3, there is an Ableton stock version of this same processing chain, and then I'm just running it through RC20 just to make it sound a little bit more vintage. Now the next thing I added was this Mellotron flute. This is the Strawberry Flutes preset, and I'm just playing the melody. Now the last thing I added to this A section was this vibraphone. I'm just using this vibraphone to add some ear candy to the sample, playing the chords ascending and descending. Okay, now let's move on to the B section. A couple things to note initially for the B section. Instead of using electric piano, I'm switching to piano to play the chords. I'm also adding this string section here, and then I'm using a different bass rhythm. Same drums, I'm altering the pattern a bit for this ascending movement that we have going on here. The core ideas to this B section came from writing this short little string section initially. I was using the same bass line as before over this new string section, but I thought that it didn't feel different enough, so I then changed the bass line according to the string section. For the string section, I just played this melody over the chord progression. I started off with the violin. I just started off with this lower voicing here and then added these notes on top. Let's just give it a listen real quick. Now, I played this over the original chord progression and it sounded fine and it worked, but it still felt too similar to the A section, so I changed the chords and the bass line following this melody that takes place in the second half of the strings. As far as the rest of the strings go, for the cello, I'm just following this same melody I wrote for the violin. I'm just adding cello to add a little bit more bass to the string section. For this B section, I wanted to follow this melody mostly in unison, instead of writing an entirely new chord progression, just so that this B section feels somewhat familiar, especially in the first half. And then I'm just adding these short little violin and viola stabs just at the end of every couple measures. This just makes the string section as a whole feel a lot more full and alive. It's also nice having these short stabs playing against these long held durations. It makes the string section just feel a lot more dynamic. Now the next thing I did was change the bass line entirely. I'm essentially just playing the melody I wrote for the string section, but on bass with some variation in the playing style. I'm playing this melody in unison just to drive the melody forward, making it the core identity of the B section. I also think this is a nice amount of variation, being that the A section is a lot more harmonic. There's a lot more harmonic elements, and this B section being a lot more melody driven. The last thing I added to this B section was the piano. I'm playing the same piano chords that I'm playing in the A section just to give it some familiarity. And for the second half of the B section, I'm following this melody line I wrote just to, again, drive the melody forward, making it the core identity of the B section. And I'm just filling in some of the notes in between, just fourths and fifths, just to make the piano sound a bit more full when it's playing in this section. The last thing I want to note for this B section is this initial walking up motion I'm doing on the second half. I wanted each hit to be emphasized a lot, so I just kind of changed the drum pattern to have a kick hit every time a new melody note is introduced. That just drives this ascending motion a little bit harder in the sample. That's how I made the sample Lost off of my Grimm Volume 1 pack. If you want to support me and download the full pack, the links will be in the description. Everything's on my Patreon. The sample pack comes with 10 samples in this lane with all the stems and a version of the sample I ran through my tape machine. If you subscribe to the Patreon, you get to download everything I've ever released. I hope breaking down this B section of this sample helps you develop B sections of your own. Peace.